All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this council meeting to order at 6 bells. Good evening and welcome to our April 23rd regular meeting of council. First order of business is adoption of the minutes of the council meeting held April 7th, 2014. Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Paul Davidson. Are there any errors or omissions within those minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Minutes are adopted. Once again, now we need a motion to move the minutes of the special committee of the whole meeting held April 9th, 2014. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Greer. Again, any errors or omissions in those minutes? All right, all in favor? Opposed? And those minutes are adopted. Thank you. And one more time, this time, motion to receive the minutes of the special committee of the whole meeting held April 16th. By Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Again, any errors or omissions? None. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And second minutes, I misread that. It's not the 19th, it was the 9th. All right, now we need an approval of our agenda. By Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Paul Davidson. Are there any additions, changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is approved and carried. All right, so we have one presentation this evening and a couple of delegations. First up, we have a presentation from McGorman McLean Chartered Accountants, and this is regarding the 2013 city financial statements. So Mr. McGorman, please have a seat. I know you've sat there a number of occasions now, so you know how this all works. We've made an arrangement to give Mr. McGorman a little bit additional time because we felt that you might find it quite informative. So, as has been the case in the past, we've kind of kept you to 10 minutes. This time, we'll give you 3 to 4 hours. I'm just kidding, folks, not that long. About a half an hour, maybe at max. All right, sir, the floor is yours, and then we'll open it to any questions from council.
Thank you. The audit is a requirement of subsection 171, sub 1 of the Community Charter, which requires that the auditor report to council annually on the financial statements. Attached to the financial statements is the auditor's report to mayor and council. The auditor's report provides an opinion that the consolidated statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city as at December 31st, 2013, results of operations, cash flows, and changes in net assets for the year that ended, in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. At the audit committee meeting, the audit committee asked me to provide a little more detail on the financial statements this year. So we're going to do that. Sorry. So in the financial statement, Statement A is the statement of financial position. It's more traditionally a balance sheet if it was a for-profit organization. Financial assets of the municipality are, or the city, sorry, are cash and investments and accounts receivable. Your cash and investments and cash equivalents, which the investments are all GICs, total $30,962,109, and it's made up of cash of $4,677,617 and investments, all in GICs of $26,284,492. That's an increase of $1,857,998 over last year. That increase is primarily due to transfers to surplus and transfers to reserve accounts in the current year. Your accounts receivable, $3,017,229, an increase of $257,748. That's the receivable increased primarily because the federal government had a $163,689 contributory portion of the community park field upgrade in the current year. That portion is receivable, so it's $163,689 receivable from the federal government. Accrued revenues include utilities of $1,027,300, which is a 3% increase over last year. Interest of $349,875. There's just more money invested in the current year, so that's gone up. And government and amounts receivable from other governments, which is the Englishman River joint venture. Prepaids are $96,322, and they're included under non-financial assets. That includes PTC insurance, annual supports for software that were paid after the year end. Financial liabilities include accounts payable, which are $2,223,164. The federal government makes up $482,463 of that, so that's primarily from the RCMP, or actually entirely from the RCMP. The provincial government makes up $58,162 of that. That's primarily school taxes collected for the school district, obviously. Other governments include $195,785, which is the Aerosmith Water service, which is $103,548, and the RDN, which is $58,056. Trade payables are $839,469, and that includes the $236,536 holdback on highway number 19, the improvements on highway number 19, the project. Deferred revenue, $61,526. That's increased due to the 2014 business licenses being billed in 2013 and collected in 2013. In 2012, those business license bills went out after the year end. That's why they're not there. That's why the increase. Deposits, they include prepaid taxes, prepaid utilities. Your prepaid taxes are $1,442,817. Prepaid utilities are $90,220. And development security deposits are $983,587. Large portion of that, $534,916, relates to Ocean Ridge and Sunrise Resorts, which is currently in receivership. Deferred gas tax revenue is $2,035,710. There's a requirement that those be spent on eligible projects on a timely basis. Last year you spent $16,650 on bike lanes on Bay Avenue, and more will be spent on bike lanes in the current year on the Temple, on Temple Street. DCCs, development cost charges, are deferred revenue development cost charges, $4,770,163. Your expenditures out of that fund this year were $1,693,869. $99,000 out of open spaces, which is the Shelley Road Trails. $436,503, which were water DCCs, which are spent on the Aerosmith water system. $226,002, which are storm DCCs spent on Finholm, and $937,764 road DCCs primarily on Highway 19A. So your expenditures out of DCCs included $1,693,689. The DCC is the actual flow of DCCs is included in Note 8 to the financial statements. Your capital assets in the current year, you acquired $5,031,000 of capital assets. A significant costs were for the Aerosmith water system, Aerosmith River water system, Englishman River water system, improvements to Highway 19A, and Shelley Road, the Shelley Road property, the acquisition of the Shelley Road property. Developers' contributions to capital assets included $828,886. Developers contribute to capital assets in as much as if they put in a subdivision, the services, the water, sewer, roads of the subdivision become property of the city. So there was $647,586, which were roads, storm drains, sidewalks, and street lights. Water was $152,500, and the sewer system was $28,800. I'm going to flip over to the revenues, which is a statement of operations in the current year. Taxation revenues are the largest portion of your revenues. It's $11,418,070. That's an increase of $350,474, or 3.2% over last year. That's in line with the budgeted increase and represents 52.4% of revenues. Water and sewer user fees were $4,019,321. That's an increase of $440,857, which is a 12.3% increase. The increase was budgeted and was due primarily to the change in how water rates are structured. Flat fees plus consumption is the current year. So this year you're charging them a flat fee plus a consumption charge, and in prior years it was all based on consumption. Services to other governments, 506,302. That's fire protection is 326,477. Sports fields, 179,825. Both of those are contributions from the RDN. Sales of services are $1,507,755. That's an increase of $118,965, or 8.6% over last year. The increase over budget in prior years is due to the increase in business licenses and subdivision and rezoning fees. Included in sales of other services, about half of its garbage collection, which is $751,768. Interest and actuarial income is $514,180. Actuarial income is the income earned on the sinking funds on your debt. That's $137,281. Other revenues from own sources, $262,026. Interest and penalty and property taxes were $116,831. Fines, fees, and other services were $115,763, and donations were $29,432. Government transfers, $369,826. That's a decrease of $352,264 in the current year. That's because you had a decrease in your small communities grant. That grant, the decrease in the grant, your treasurer knows what those grants are ahead of time. That decrease was budgeted, and it decreased from $476,265 to $222,595. And the small communities grants, a grant from the province of BC. Capital grants, $714,112. Sports field improvements were $177,275. That's a community park field. And the Englishman River Water System water treatment, it was $495,187, was contributed by the federal government. Developer contributions to capital assets, $828,886. That's a revenue, you can see, and we discussed that earlier. Transfer from deferred revenue, we discussed that earlier, was $1,693,869. Basically, items in deferred revenue are included on the balance sheet until they're spent. At such time, they're moved over as revenue, so they're credited to revenue at that time. Loss on disposal of tangible capital assets, $62,787. That's just primarily the write-off of assets as they're being replaced. So it's really just a figure to pull the assets off the balance sheet. Your expenses, general government services, were $1,959,170. That's a decrease of $349,896. Last year, the costs included the cost of the land donated to the Chamber of Commerce, so it's $351,000. So the primary reason for that decrease in government services is you didn't redonate another section of land to anyone. So that actually came out as an expense last year. Protective services, $3,341,683. $2,054,488 is policing services. That's $346,412 less than budget. It's always less than budget because you're always budgeting for a maximum complement, and in any given year they're always short on number of officers, number of staff, things like that. Bylaw enforcement is $174,895. Emergency measures, $75,887. Those are all in protective services. And amortization in protective services is $169,877. Transportation is $3,817,634. That's $795,622 less than budget. It's less than budget primarily because the new drainage master plan was budgeted but not started, and virtually there was no snow removal in 2013. And there was less projects than budgeted. Planning is $808,157. It's less than 2012 primarily due to the retirement of the planner. Parks, $2,273,856. That's $258,584 less than budgeted. And that's because of staffing issues and postponement of work during the current year. Water, $2,108,365. That's $726,671 less than budget. There was a meter replacement that was budgeted at 231,335, which didn't get done in the current year, which has been postponed. Didn't get done in the previous year, which is postponed to the current year. Minor capital projects not undertaken were $169,053, and again, those will all be spent in the current year. And there was the cross connection. Can't even read my own writing. Control project, cross-connection control. Thanks, Lucky. Cross-connection control project in the well rehabilitation, which was under budget by $115,000, and that just went into general surplus in the current year. Your sewer was $1,076,359, which is $491,191 less than budget. The sewer master plan was budgeted but not started. That was $132,235, and minor capital works weren't undertaken. That's it for a summary of the financial statements. So I went through them in a fairly quick pace.
You did. Very good. We appreciate that of our auditors.
My eyes are watering a bit.
I bet. So let's open the floor to any questions from members of council. Go ahead, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Can you just go over the other revenue from owned sources? Was up quite a bit this year. What that would encompass?
Yeah, other revenues from owned sources, $262,000. The biggest thing in there is interest and penalties on property taxes, which are $116,026. There's fines and other services, which are $115,763, and donations to $29,432. The fines and other services are up, and I'm not even sure why they're up. Do you know?
Let's put him on the spot. Mr. Butterworth?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Powell Davidson.
Yes. Every municipality in BC lost half of the small communities grant. That's a grant that's actually determined by the province, so you really don't have any control over it. And it's a grant that the treasurer's aware of at the beginning of the year. So when he's actually doing his budget, that the next year's grant is actually included in that budget. So when the treasurer was doing his budget, he knew that grant wasn't coming in. But every municipality received approximately half what they received the year before.
Okay, other members of council? Any questions for our auditor? Okay. Just out of curiosity, is there anyone in the room that might have a question? Very smart of you. Okay, very good. So with that, I want to thank you very much. So overall, at least financially, recognizing this isn't value for money or performance, the city's in good stead?
The city's in good stead. And I'd also like to just recognize the work of your treasurer and all the staff. The audit went really smoothly this year. It goes smoothly every year, but it seemed to go extraordinarily smoothly this year. So it was a pleasure to do. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. All right, in just a few moments, we will move into our delegations, ladies and gentlemen. Just bear with us, please. Go ahead, Mr. Manson. Yes, very good. So just being reminded, of course, we do need a resolution to accept the auditor's report. And do we have that in council? Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And I guess I probably should make it one more here just to make sure, although it could have been included in the first, but just so everyone's clear. So now that you've received it, let's get a resolution that the 2013 financial statements be accepted as presented and approved. Go ahead, moved by Councillor Greer, second by Councillor Powell. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our delegations for this evening. We have two delegations, the first of which is from the Broom Busters Society. It's regarding the 2014 invasive plant update, and it's a presentation from Miss Joanne Sales, who's not exactly a stranger in this room. Thank you for the sign, Joanne. And as you know from being here before, roughly 10 minutes, and please make sure your red light is on. Thank you. The floor is yours. Very good.
Allowing me to speak again today. It's been a couple years since I've been here, and I have lots of pictures to look at, but you know, broom is not a new topic for you all, and mostly I'm here to just thank you for the support that you've been giving to Broom Busters since 2007. The model of cooperation set by Qualicum Beach and Parksville 7 years ago has spread to many municipalities now around the islands. This is a list of the areas where they now have active Broom Busters groups. Qualicum Beach and Parksville were the first. Nanaimo and Lanceville, Comox Valley, Campbell River, Port Alberni. This year we're beginning in the Cowichan Valley, and we have interest we're in communication with the mayors of Tofino and the District of Highlands. So something started here, and it is the success that we've been having here that is making them go, we want to do that too. So we believe that Parksville could get control of the broom completely in a couple years, and it's really important to do so. In the past, we've talked about why the province isn't taking a stronger stand on the broom problem, and it's because they don't believe that broom can be controlled. And that's why it's so important that we show that, in fact, it can be controlled. Qualicum Beach has very little broom left, and Parksville is getting control in a lot of areas. And our goal this year is to make a lot of progress in that direction again. So this, unfortunately, is one of the pictures from the sky of the Parksville interchange. I remember when that was forested, that yellow field. And unfortunately, that's what happens when broom is in an area when it's being cleared and no one is protecting it from being taken over. And there are parts of the world where forests have been totally replaced by broom forests, and that's what you get because the trees cannot compete with the spread of broom. This is the interchange 46. And you can see how the broom grows in every disturbed area. Now, a lot of this has been cleared since this photo was taken. We did a lot of work on this interchange last year. This is a really good demonstration. This is also near Parksville, kind of Allsbrook Road area. And it shows how the broom goes under the BC power lines. That is such a fire hazard because broom is extremely flammable, and as you'll see by some later photos, it becomes very dry and very flammable. And the BC Hydro loves it because trees can't grow. And of course, that's the reason why we don't love it, is because trees can't grow. And here you can see close up, you can see how the broom gets out into the small trees, and it can actually prevent the trees from growing. Oregon estimates that it loses over $47 million each year in lost timber sales because of Scotch broom. So I just want to go through some pictures just to show how tall the broom can get. That woman on the left is standing up straight, and that's how big the broom is. This is right next to Parksville. This young man was on Northwest Bay Road, and the photo to the right is in the Englishman River estuary. Another problem is the broom strangles a native species, and there you can see camas that was hiding underneath the broom. This is in Nanaimo. The fire hazard. This was a dry year. This was not broom that was cut. This was just a dry year, and this is what happened. You can just imagine the flammability of broom. But I also like to point out the bottom picture there is the landfill in Qualicum Beach, and it's absolutely amazing. It's just like we cut the broom and it just didn't come back. It's been several years now, and it's just a green field. So we can get control of it if we do it at the right time. Here's more pictures of dry broom. Not cut broom, just dry broom. This is one of the other problems, and this is probably more what Parksville needs to address, is when absentee owners ignore the property and then broom or gorse comes in and takes over. The problems are allergies for people living close by, seeds spread to neighboring lots, parks and roads, and still a fire hazard. And also it attracts rats and feral cats and all kinds of problems. Broom spreads so rapidly. You have a single broom plant, and then a couple years with this 18,000 seeds per plant, it spreads, and then by the time it looks like the hillside on the right, there's really not much that can reclaim that area. That's pretty much ruined land. I don't think I need to read through this again. This is just the problems with this alien and invasive plant. This couple years ago, 2012, we did a massive cut down Island Highway in Parksville, and this is a picture of some of the people that showed up. We had over 40 people at that cut. We cut almost all the broom that was on the Island Highway in Parksville, but the problem that was left was the gorse. So gorse is, of course, a problem that Parksville has that not every municipality has, and it's a difficult one to deal with. I believe one of the major reasons why gorse has gotten so out of control here is because of the overlapping jurisdictions. Along Island Highway, it's hard to tell who's responsible for what. Is it Parksville responsibility? Is it private land? Is it MOT? Is it RDN? And one of the things that we would like this year that we're requesting is that we would love to take part in a discussion of strategies to get control of the gorse that's on Island Highway. And we would be willing to help as well. We'd just like to discuss with someone how is it that we can help, because the gorse is spreading, and it's spreading into Arrington and Coombs areas, and it's so much more serious than broom that we want to reach out and offer to help in whatever way possible. But we need a contact person for this, and we promise not to be annoying. So if you can set us up with someone to talk to about that. The other major thing that's always difficult to talk about is bylaws. Okay? Every time we appear before a council, we bring up the subject of bylaws, and we're hoping someday some municipality is going to be able to set a new standard of an effective bylaw that would require private landowners to stop the spread of noxious weeds on their property. We understand that it may be phased in over 3 to 5 years, but there's creative ways that we could do this. And by passing a bylaw, it'd be a very effective way of communicating to private landowners that the city is serious about invasive plants and protecting the native ecosystem. Also, Parksville residents who have allergies would certainly appreciate that they could feel well in their own hometown. I just heard on Monday on CBC News about a massive wipeout of bananas in Africa due to a deadly virus. But then they said in Australia the banana crops were probably going to be safe because the Australian government quickly stepped in and took strong action to stop the spread of the virus. And that's the kind of help we need. We need the government to step in, and that's what people are asking me to ask council for. The other things that we would like to ask council is that we have the sign there. We'd like permission to put 3 or 4 signs up in Parksville. It does a lot to show the city's support. Courtney has more volunteers now than they can really handle, and I think it's partly because they put their emblem, the Courtney emblem, on the signs that they would put up. We don't want that. We just want to have signs, a couple signs in the city of Parksville. The other thing that we would like is any other kind of demonstration of support from the city for controlling broom. That could be a press release, an interview of a local paper or radio, mayor's proclamation, whatever the council would find appropriate would be very helpful. Parksville has several assets in the fight against broom. One is that the corrections crew from the NIMO chips the broom that broombusters cut just outside of city limits, and sometimes cuts the broom, which they've done on some of the interchanges. And other cities don't have that and are extremely envious. Also, we have the wonderful pilots from the Parksville Qualicum Beach Aero Club who take photos each year of the Oceanside area, and that really helps to get a sense of what's going on. So with the support of council and a good group of volunteers, which we always hope is growing, anything is possible in Parksville. So I'd like to just finish my time, which I'm not going to know when it's up. Somebody has to tell me, by showing you photos of what's going on elsewhere. So here you see Campbell River. Lanceville started last year and has a very rambunctious group of volunteers. Here's gorse in the Neuse. This demonstrates how terrible it is, and you have to use herbicides, and it takes many years to get rid of gorse. We understand it's a serious problem. Okay, here's some cuts. This was these young people cut in Parksville years ago. Now they've all moved on, but love that photo. This young woman on the right, Moira from Scotland, said that Vancouver Island has more Scotch broom than Scotland. And that's because it's out of its element. Here we have, you can see the Parksville photo on the right. This woman is cutting on, this is what the broom on Island Highway used to look at, and there aren't many patches like that anymore. Here's some Nanaimo cuts. And mostly I wanted to show you this about the Comox Valley. Last year, the Canadian Forces Base got involved, and they offered the opportunity to volunteer one day on May 22nd, and they got 150 people that wanted to come out and volunteer. So in 6 hours, they cut all the broom that was on Ryan Road. I don't know if you know how dense and how thick that was. But 6 hours later, 2.5 kilometers of dense broom was cut and stacked. And interestingly, it was like MOT wouldn't let us cut there unless we were willing to pay for it. So we actually had to pay to have the broom removed. But we did, and the broom was removed, and the volunteers have continued to keep that area clear. So it's just amazing what can be done when enough people get out and enough people are conscious to take, continue to care for the area. And this is the reason why we cut broom, for future generations. We just need to leave the native ecosystem the way it was, or as close as possible when we're gone. And many say that Scotch broom is naturalized. That's a line you'll hear, which implies that the alien plant is now in balance in the ecosystem and that we can't do anything about it anyway. But this is not true. Scotch broom will keep spreading across every farm, park, green space field, and clear cut unless we stop it. Scotch broom is doing its best to ruin paradise, and so we have to do our best to save it. That's it.
All right, very good. Right on time. So I will open the floor to questions of Ms. Sales. Councillor Neufeld, please.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. That was a really interesting presentation, Joanne. I really appreciate that, and I think of all the work that you've done, and I think it's tremendous. One of the things that you wound up saying was not, you didn't ask for any money. You asked for support. You asked for use of even the use of the decal, but in fact a proclamation or something of that nature. You made the comment, however, in clearing the stuff off Ryan Road that you had to pay for it. Yeah. You've never come to council for money or anything of that nature. How do you generate the funds that you use to do all of your work?
Well, in that situation, what happened was they can't do it again, but the Comox Valley Regional District gave us money, which we then used to pay for the chipping trucks, which is about $2,000. I know that it can be quite expensive. We do have a grant from the Gaming Board, and probably the reason why we don't come to Parksville is because, like I said, you have the corrections crew that chips up right outside of the city limits. But places, like Courtney and Campbell River, when it's right outside of the city, it really feels like it's part of the city. But that's when the expense of the chipping comes in. So we would probably be begging for money at that point. But hey, we're open. We are open.
I'm going to go to Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. You'd mentioned gorse quite a few times in your presentation, and we did have a presentation earlier from Goats on the Hoop, and they said that they will eat gorse. Is that something that, obviously it's a paid service, so that would have to be analyzed, but possibly with, I know there are some private lots closer to the resorts that have gorse as a problem there, and maybe working with the landowners could utilize that.
Well, actually, we have an authority here. I don't know if she wants to talk, but actually the reason why some of the first goats that they got were from one of the council members from Broombusters who is here. And actually, goats don't like broom and they don't like gorse. They will eat it as a last resort after they've eaten everything else. And the problem with that is that one of the most important things about getting rid of broom, not gorse, I'll leave that as a separate subject, but broom is that you have to leave the ground cover. The reason why we've had success where other people have not is that we don't disturb the soil. We leave the grass growing or the salal or the shade, whatever else is going on. And then the millions of seeds or thousands of seeds that are in the soil will not necessarily germinate. That's really essential. Now, the problem with the goats is they're going to eat everything else first. They're going to eat the grass first. They're going to eat the trees. They'll eat salal. They'll eat everything before they eat the broom. Now, the gorse is a totally other situation. If in fact they do eat gorse, which I don't know, but if they would eat it, they would eat it down to the ground, but gorse is not killed by that. You actually have to use an herbicide to get to it. I think that they will eat, the goats will eat gorse and broom when there's nothing else or when it's very young. But they will kill trees and they will do all kinds of things. So I wish the best for these people, and I think probably when you're dealing with other invasive plants, like blackberries, that the goats could be quite effective. But I have to see a demonstration before I'm a believer. And we would love nothing more than for goats to love to eat broom. That would be awesome.
Thank you. Further questions from members of council? Councillor Powell Davis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your presentation. You're a great presenter.
Oh, thank you.
My question, Your Worship, is actually to you, my fellow councillors, or to our CAO. In her presentation, Ms. Sales mentioned that we needed to get some pressure on the provincial government to, I can't remember exactly how she worded, to take a stronger stand on these invasive species. And can you correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last Union of BC Municipalities, did we not pass a resolution there to go forward to the provincial government demanding that they actually do recognize?
If memory serves me correctly, on more than one occasion, a number of resolutions have been passed on this subject, expressing concern and asking for a greater focus on the issue. As Ms. Sales points out, it's prevalent in the Island Highway corridor. It's prevalent, obviously, in power line corridors. Most of those areas are outside of municipalities. They fill within the regional districts. And a lot of them are under the jurisdiction, obviously, the provincial government, such as those areas along the Island Highway. So it is something that we've been pressing for some time, as I know you're well aware. And as you pointed out in your presentation, I don't believe and I don't want to speak for the government, but I don't believe they bought into the idea that they could actually eradicate this if they were to put enough effort in. Something I've always thought might work, because when I go out, and I spend a lot of time out in the back 40 there, is to put a bounty on it, much like salal pickers, right? I always run into guys with full pickup trucks of salal selling it into the floral industry, granted, but man, if you put a bounty on that stuff, it would be cleaned up in no time. That's what I think. But that might cost a lot of money too, obviously.
Yeah. Well,
Depends on the bounty.
If I might add something to that, there are a lot of people who are very upset now because as it goes over the BC Hydro areas that go over their own farms, they're paying taxes on land that simply cannot be used. You cannot farm an area that has been invaded by broom.
Yeah, it does spread through those corridors very quickly, and where they intersect with farmland, I know that is an issue. I've heard from the odd farmer on that very subject. So, no, it is an ongoing issue. You made a request in your presentation to just get together and meet and see if there are any other stones left unturned that we could look at. Obviously, more than happy to do that with you.
Great, yeah.
We can just work through Amanda here and come up with a time that works for you.
That's
and
great,
we'll sit down, and if there is something else that we can do that we haven't already attempted or already in the process of doing, by all means, we can certainly look at it, bring it back to council if necessary, and see what our collective thoughts are.
Yeah, because I think there's some things we don't understand in Parksville. Like I said, a lot of it has to do with jurisdiction, but a lot of it has to do with what's private and what's public. So we would.
Those are the challenges: private land, but we can't get too caught up. I mean, obviously, jurisdiction is really important, but like the field that you were referencing at the very beginning, that's all regional district land. It's actually outside of the city, but people don't necessarily think that. All they see is a big field of broom as they come into the city. So that does impact us, even if it is outside of our boundary. And there's certainly, we sit on the regional board, so we can, certainly continue to see what we can do to try and keep on supporting you and the great work that you and your volunteers are doing. Because I have noticed there are areas that you seem to have won, which is fantastic, right? And I've seen, certainly in the last year, lots of volunteers working really, really hard. I've done it myself once or twice, and then pretty much avoid this sort of work whenever I can, because it's so difficult, right? It does require a lot of physical effort, especially with some of the mature broom, as you've shown in your slides. So.
Well, we usually only cut for 2 hours, and there's very few people that can't do it for 2 hours. So we invite you all personally to come and join us.
I mean, that's right. It's a lot of fun too, folks.
Yeah,
so make sure you
it is fun.
get out there.
And
actually, it is. You do at least get a sense of accomplishment when you look behind you and you can actually see field again and grass and things like that.
Yeah, and then you take ownership. You feel like a steward of that area every time you go by there. So that looks good.
I saw Julian Fell hacking away up on the highway there for quite a while. I was quite impressed with him, actually, because I kept passing by.
He did an amazing
Never stopped
job.
to chat with him, of course, but still impressed from a distance.
Yeah.
All right. Anything further from members of council before we carry on? Go ahead, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Actually, there was a reference to gorse, and probably over a year ago now, we had a presentation when we were over at the Belenis, as far as gorse was concerned, from John Bevan. And he was concerned about gorse and the incursion as far as public, or at least I shouldn't say public, but more so on private property. Are you aware of that gentleman and what he has been doing? He, in fact, has been mapping some of the area in Parksville. Have you worked with him?
Okay. I think we communicated a couple of years ago and then lost contact, so I'd like to get contact with him again.
I have his number if you would like
Okay.
it. If you could send me your email, I will send it back to you as far as John's concerned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, one final question, and then we're going to move on to our next delegation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Because we have so many people in our audience this evening and our friends from the media as well, a quick question for you about gorse. And I know that it's becoming a real issue here in Parksville, but aside from being ugly, hard to get rid of, invasive, is it not also hazardous to people's health?
Well, it is. All of these cause, serious problems with allergies and people with allergies. It certainly is dangerous to walk into. There's a lot of talk about whether it's toxic, and that I don't have a definitive answer on that. So I don't really know. And also with broom, both of them are said to be toxic to the soil. At the same time, they change the soil, but they also are nitrogen fixers. And so people are taking all sides of the argument. Pardon? Oh, it has terrible thorns. Oh, yeah. And the worst thing about it is that you then have to use herbicides in order to get rid of it. And, of course, that's not good for our health or the health of the planet as well. Another reason to to stop its spread. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Sales, for your ongoing efforts, and certainly be in touch with us, and we'll get a time together, and we can explore some of those other options that you brought forward. All right. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to our last delegation of this evening, and this is going to be a presentation from Mr. David Haynes, and this is on behalf of the Parksville Historical Society regarding a request for an amendment to an agreement, and of course it relates to a potential summer farmers market. Hello, Mr. Haynes, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you both, gentlemen? I think you also are aware of how this works by now, so oh, okay. Well, hand out your materials first, by all means, and then we'll give you about 10 minutes for the presentation, and we'll make sure there's some opportunity for council to engage with you and vice versa upon its conclusion. All right, gentlemen, red light is on. Floor is yours.
Thank you. What we would like is to show you our idea for a farmer's market. We would like to have one at the Parksville Museum, and no, I think we're off. We've looked at the timing of having a farmer's market at a variety of spots. Qualicum has a farmer's market on Saturdays. Lanceville has one on Saturdays. The Orange Bridge Market is in, and it has one on Saturdays. Arrington has one on Saturdays. And we looked at it and we thought, well, Friday night would actually be a better night. Oddly enough, we just found out this evening that down in Nanaimo in front of the library, there's a farmer's market as well on Friday night. So I think it's one of those things that has just come about organically, but it's definitely out there. Friday night, farmer's market. Benefits. The benefits for this is that you can shop after you work. We expose the museum to a whole new audience, one that has not come by. Many times we hear this wonderful phrase, gee, I've driven by that white church. I've seen it a lot of times, but no, I've never stopped there. So this gives people a reason to come to the museum and to stop at the museum. We can also use it for a variety of other things, such as in the future we've envisioned things such as a vintage fair or possibly even car shows, old cars. People who would be involved would be local growers, individuals, farmers, the public, the museum. You're on the wrong page. It's okay. It's going too quickly. I know. I've only got 10 minutes, and I really got to rattle through this. So, the museum itself, we hope to have some artisans there, and of course, we'd like to be involved with the city of Parksville with it. But you're on. Okay. The place that we'd like it is on the Parksville Museum grounds themselves. We have sort of, I haven't got a good word for it, ghettoized it in a way. We have an area that we would have food sales only, and we have another area that we would like to set aside for artisans to have their booths, and that they would actually be physically separated. Some would be in the, if you know the area. Oh, good. Some would be in the main area between the church and the various buildings. The artisans would be in the park area where it says on the slide here, park plan. So it would be they would be in a slightly different region. Historically, Parksville has been the breadbasket of the island. Well, it was up until about 1920, 1930, and we're exploring why it is that it no longer is. Saanich is, Courtney is, but we're not. And we need some more. We need farms in this area. We need some farming in this area. We need the stability from that. That's something that we believe. We figure that this can also generate a lot of traffic to the museum, to the grounds, to the buildings, and various exhibits that we might have there. We believe that it will raise the profile and the visibility of the museum within the community here, and I think that would be a really useful thing. It would engage in a variety of different activities in the community. We not only see it as a farmer's market at this point, but we see in the future that it could also be other things. So, for instance, 2 or 3 years from now, I'm off the program here. 2 or 3 years from now, I see that we could have something such as a 1920s band shell, which historically is correct for this region. My godfather was a member of the Nanaimo Coronet band, and that has run for probably 120 years. So having bands in this area would be a very appropriate thing. Having live music down there could be a very nice thing. We, of course, would have to be cognizant of our neighbors and be careful to not disturb them too much. one of the things that we've decided that would be good policy is to give free admission during this fair to the whole museum. So if you come to the farmers market, you also, of course, can come into any of the exhibits that we have, any of the buildings that we have. You can explore them and you can learn about them. We think that would be a very good thing for us. It would give farmers a common meeting ground, one which historically has happened in the Parksville region, and something that I think we need to do again. The museum is a city-owned park, and we'd like to involve the city with the park. It's a place where people can meet, they can socialize, they can get a bit of knowledge about the area, and they can go home with locally grown vegetables. We think an ongoing summer market would be a good thing on a weekly basis on Fridays, and we chose the time specifically because we want to make sure that people are coming home from work, and also it seems to be sort of I'm going to say a dead time in terms of the community. There's not an awful lot going on here on Friday night. So what we were thinking was that 5 till 8 o'clock was a good time. We have one minor problem that we want to make sure that we're going to avoid, and we'd rather avoid problems rather than deal with them, and that is our next door neighbor, the Chamber of Commerce, has most of our access is through their parking lot, and so we want to be running in such a way that we're not interfering with them. They're shutting down at the same time as we would be loading up, so to speak. Another reason that we think that the farmers market would be useful here is that the Qualicum Farmers Market has a waiting list already, so we see that another market is needed at this point. Okay, benefits. You've moved on. That's okay. Local food, vending for it, an increase of locally grown food consumption. We see a celebration of farms and farmers. We see successes of farmers markets in BC as a very viable asset for us. It gives us a sense of community. Food always is a subject that brings people together. It brings enhanced visitation to the museum. It improves the museum's exposure to our community, and it's no cost to the city. We're not asking for money. We're just asking for permission to allow us to raise our own funds and have a minor change in our lease agreement with you. The museum becomes a destination. It's not a drive-by place. And we really want to breathe some life into that old girl. It's got some problems. Ways of advertising. Well, word of mouth. Signage. We have some problems with our signs. If you look at the two that are up there, you'll see that we have, 3 different signs. So we need to work on our signage. We think social media will be good for us. TV would be good for advertising. Radio. We'd like to use banners. We'd like to put banners up on the fences. The local paper. We have constant contact already with the museum, and it would be a good source of information about who's there, what they're doing, where to find them, things of that nature. The city of Parksville, I think we would hope would be a good means of advertising for what we're doing. The Nanu's Business Directory has already offered to give us some space free. The Parksville Museum web would be a good source. The Chamber of Commerce would also be. By the way, we're a member of the Chamber. And its location itself. It's a good location. So, has everybody here been to the museum? Does everybody know where we're talking about?
I think that would be a perfect segue to move to the council discussion portion of this. So,
okay,
I'm done. Well, we're at 10 minutes, so that was very good, Mr. Haynes.
No, I've got 6 minutes and 54 seconds left.
Sort of. But we will probably use up that time in discussion right at now. So, is there any member of council that wishes to ask any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have about 3 questions. One, have you spoken with the Chamber of Commerce about what your plans are?
Yes, we have. shortly. At this point, we're not really making any concrete plans because, of course, we haven't had any approval from you, and this is our logical starting spot.
And you haven't spoken to anybody in Craig Bay either, then?
We have talked with them, and those are our two immediate neighbors, and so yes, we have had some discussions with them. Craigs Bay has some issues that we may face, but we bring some real benefits to them as well.
Okay. And the final question was about parking. I've been to the museum when I was the liaison to the board, and I know it was difficult at night to find parking. And well, you'll be open from 5 till 8. In your documents, you say that you're gonna get prepared for the farmers market throughout the day, and so you'll be using up parking space in the Chamber of Commerce. So I think that's an issue that will have to be dealt with because you will be using their parking space and driving through it. And so that's my main concern is the parking because there's very limited parking in that area.
Right.
And
we have actually been discussing that, and we have 2 or 3 proposals that we're considering. Share Care itself is across the street from us, and it would be an ideal parking venue. And Share Care is also a farm representation company, so they would be a logical place to say yes. Again, we can't really ask them until we have permission from you folks.
And so
secondly, the Heritage Mall would be also a very good place for parking, and they're closed. They're pretty well closed down at the same time as we would be opening up.
And so basically you've come to the city first?
Yes.
And so maybe the appropriate thing would be make a referral to staff to come back with a report or to work with the museum to see if there is some ways to deal with the issues or actually look at what you're requesting.
Right.
No, I think you're reading my mind, Councillor Powell. If you wanted to make a motion to that effect, to direct staff to work with the Historical Society and come back to council with options with respect to the lease, you can certainly do that.
I will.
Okay, very good.
He
So that's
said.
moved. Seconded by Councillor Greer. So while we're on that subject then, just on the motion, is there any further discussion from members of council on that? Go ahead, Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation, Mr. Haynes, and although I see a few questions that you might have to solve, I think it's a great idea. And I think, I'm sure council will feel the same way when we look into it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
My suggestion is actually to convene a meeting with the neighbors, the chamber representatives from the Craig Heritage, the housing there, as well as obviously a representative of the city, and then sit down and really kind of go through this and see if there's a way to move forward and keep everybody happy. I mean, that would be, to me, the next logical step. But I think it's a great potential idea for not only increasing the effectiveness of getting people aware of our museum, but also it might be a big hit. Maybe that's kind of what scares us. It might be such a big hit, sort of like the Tuesday street markets, that we'll end up with thousands of people all up and down that road. Mr. Manson, you had your hand up, sir.
Yes, Your Worship. There's actually 2 issues with regards to this that eventually will have to be considered by council. One is the lease itself. The permitted use for the property in the lease is for the museum. It would be relatively simple to add whatever other permitted use on that lease from council's point of view. There's no issue with that. That's just at council's discretion. The more gnarly one is zoning.
Yeah, use on the zone.
That property right now is zoned P1, public assembly, and it would be a stretch to use or to put a farmer's market in the current zoning for that property. Now again, that wouldn't necessarily be an issue if nobody complained, but then again it would be up to council's discretion whether or not they would enforce the bylaw with regards to that. But that is something that you'll have to consider.
All right, very good. And I think within the context of the motion that's on the floor now, those issues can be raised and discussed. Further comments from members of council on the motion at hand? Go ahead, Councillor Powell-Davidson.
Thank you very much. and thank you for your presentation. Good job, well prepared. I'm wondering if I missed it. You're planning to run this summer?
We would like to, yes.
And is it, are you getting some good feedback or input, rather interest from the farming community to participate?
Yes, we have, yeah. We met originally with Barbara Ebel down at Nanu's Edibles and in our initial meeting, and she recommended a lot of things, including joining the Farmers Market Association. So we're in the process with that at this point. We've talked with a variety of different farmers. Were you able to get a hold of Mr. Springfield? No, I couldn't get a hold. So we have several farms on board. I was mentioning it to one of the people. We're actually putting in sidewalks right now, and the person who's doing the sidewalks immediately said, "Oh, can I get a booth there? My wife is doing crafts, and I'd like." So I said, "Yes, but you're going to have to actually take out a membership in the museum in order to be able to have a booth there." So.
Very good. So I have that motion before us. I'm going to call it. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. So we will certainly work with you folks. And but that motion does not extend to your need, I think, to talk with both the Chambers of Commerce, obviously, and the Craig Bay group.
We will have an
and/or groups, yeah.
immediate meeting. Yeah.
And maybe get them all together at once, and then we can really flesh it out. But very good initiative. I think that might be a very positive thing, and I look forward to seeing where this goes. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you both.
You.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our delegations for this evening. We're now moving into reports, and we have the first report from our own Mr. Banks, and this is regarding the background on the British Columbia Fire Training Officers Association Annual Convention. Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. This time I would just like to turn it over to Deputy Chief Norris. This is his pet project that he's been working on for a while, and we're quite excited to host this conference, so I'll turn it over to the Deputy.
All right, Deputy Chief, when you're ready. Did you need Amanda to help you there, Deputy Chief? You're okay?
I think I got it now.
Okay, very good.
I just wanted to put the fancy graphic up there for you. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm pleased to have the opportunity this evening to update Council in regards to the upcoming BC Fire Training Officers Association Conference. As I hope you're all aware, the Parksville Fire Department is hosting the 2014 Training Officers Weekend and Conference here from May 24th through 29th, coming up in about a month or so. The fire department has been involved with the BCFTOA for over 30 years now, and it's our first time hosting this conference here in Parksville. The BCFTOA's focus is on tackling fire service training issues in the province of British Columbia, as well as providing training resources to member fire departments. The conference brings trainers together to discuss issues, as well as provide timely and relevant information through both classroom and hands-on training, train the trainer educational sessions. These sessions touch on hot topics in the fire service and allow for the exchange of ideas, skills development, and networking. We currently have 198 registrations, representing 88 fire departments from across BC and the Yukon. Fire service presenters from Canada and the United States, including local presenters from this region and all over the island, are delivering over 40 sessions on over 20 separate topics during the conference. Our host hotel is Tinamera, where we'll be holding the classroom sessions and most of the morning and evening activities. We will also be utilizing other facilities throughout the community. For instance, our fire training facility in the industrial park, where several sessions will be offered. We're using the Arrington Fire Station, Fire Hall number 1, and we're using Little Mountain, and we're also utilizing the Nanaimo Fire Training Facility live fire burn building. Thanks to Nanaimo for letting us use that. We're pleased to have the support of our neighboring fire departments. We also have the support of many training providers, many of whom are based locally on Vancouver Island. And we're also fortunate to have generous sponsors, both locally and provincially, including companies such as Quality Foods, the Justice Institute of British Columbia Fire Safety Division, Fortis BC, and along with many other local businesses that are sponsoring in several ways. The Chamber of Commerce and Tourism have also been very supportive of us. Of course, we could not do this without the support of council and staff, and in particular without the tremendous commitment of our volunteer firefighters. We're proud to have this opportunity to showcase the commitment to quality and meaningful training that we have in the fire department here, and also it's a great opportunity to showcase our community. So, have any questions?
Yeah, I'll open the floor if there are any questions, but I'll just start by saying fantastic. But go ahead, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your presentation. I'm curious. You said Little Mountain. What are you doing on Little Mountain?
We're going to dangle people off Little Mountain. We have a
That's excellent.
We have a high angle.
What a surprise! Both reporters are writing right now. Gee, I wonder why.
We have a training provider that's coming in to do a high angle rope rescue train the trainer program, and they're for 2 days on Little Mountain, and that's one of the venues they're going to utilize for part of the program.
No, that's excellent. Other members of council, comments or questions? Very good, Deputy Chief. So yes, keep us surprised, obviously, but it's wonderful, and I'm sure we'll gain all kinds of benefits from having all of these great folks in our community. Thank you, and good work, and good job with your pet project, obviously.
Thank you.
Anything further to add, Chief?
No, Your Worship, just that we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a busy week for the department, and it's going to showcase the area quite well. Whenever we have something like that in the area here, it always goes well. The last time the fire training officers were in this area was in Qualicum in the late 80s.
Wow, very good. Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that is our first report. Now moving on to our second report. This report is going to be from Mr. Metcalf. Welcome back, sir. And Mr. Metcalf is going to give us background on 2014 asphalt services.
Mr. Metcalf.
Or Figueroa. It's what's written in my book here. Sorry. That's what's written.
No, I'll be doing
Mr.
this
Figueroa.
I'll be doing this for Mr. Metcalf.
On behalf of Mr. Metcalf.
On behalf of Mr. Metcalf. So before council is the award of tender for the asphalt paving and services for the city roads for 2014. The last time this tender was before council was in 2011, and at that time council also authorized staff to extend that contract award for 2 years if the contractor performance was favorable, which it was, and that was done. So that's why we're seeing it again now. So we're also asking for the same authorization in this report. So, and the recommendations are as per the report.
All right, Council, so you have a 4-part recommendation before you. Moved all 4 parts by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Neufeld, and I'll open it to discussion. All right, so for the benefit of everyone, that's essentially to receive this report, to award the tender to Haylock Brothers Paving Limited, to authorize staff to not exceed $600,000 in total projects, and that the mayor and myself, obviously, and corporate officer, be authorized to execute on your behalf, Council. Is there a question, Councillor Powell-Davidson?
No, just a comment, Your Worship. I was very pleased to see that this was a local company. They came in as the lowest bid, and that they have successfully done work for us in the past. I feel confident with going forward with these people.
All right, very good. So let's call it then. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, Mr. Figuera, if you wouldn't mind moving on, can you give us the background with respects to Banks Avenue Road Water and Storm and Forsyth Avenue Water and Storm professional services, please?
If I may, Your Worship. Before Council is the award of the professional services for the capital improvements to Banks Avenue and Forsyth Avenue. Banks Avenue will be upgraded to full curb and gutter and sidewalk and street lights, including a new water main and storm drainage system, a formal storm drainage system. Forsyth will include a new water main and a formal storm drainage system and road widening. Recommendations are as per the report.
Two-part recommendation, Council, moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Powell Davidson, and that is essentially to receive this report, to authorize and award the detailed design and tender support to Jones Engineering, and in the amount of $47,649. Any discussion, Council? Question from Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Figuera. On the bottom of page 49 in our report, it says the engineering fees for construction services have been included within the Timberlake Jones engineering proposal, but they will be reevaluated after the project's successful construction tender award. I don't do construction speak as well as some, and I'm not sure what that means. Can you explain that?
Can you elaborate, Mr. Figuera?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Powell Davidson, yes, that is, once the tender is awarded, the contractor will be submitting a schedule and level of effort, and at that time we can revisit what Timberlake Jones has proposed for their engineering services during construction. At this point, they're just making an educated guess as to how much time they'll have to be putting on site and how much inspection. We've found in the past that once the contractor submits that, it's a good idea to revisit that to confirm the level of effort required from the professional.
Okay. Follow-up? Go ahead, Councillor Paul Davis.
Thank you, Your Worship. And do you anticipate much of a discrepancy between what was initially submitted and what could be?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Powell Davidson, I would think it would be significantly less. The professional at this point, because they don't have a schedule to work from, and the market value, they're making their best guess, and they'll usually err on the safe side and put much more time in than they need to.
All right. Further questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to our final report. This is from our own Mr. Manson, and it's regarding the Parksville Curling Club 214 permissive tax exemption. Go ahead, Mr. Manson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is as a result of a presentation that was made by the Curling Club to Parksville, or to Council, not last council meeting, but the council meeting before, during which they requested some sort of reduction, or either that or an increase in the permissive exemption that council was providing them. At that time, council asked staff to look for options to mitigate the impact of the change in permissive taxation policy, which saw them lose their 100% exemption and be given a 50% exemption. As is outlined in the report, there really are no options for 2014 that would have the same impact as would have the 100% exemption. The best that can occur is an additional expenditure by either the city or the curling club in the amount of $2,886.47, and that's based on the estimated taxes for the new assessed value for the property. And at this point, I have no recommendation other than that the report be received for information.
Do we have a mover for receipt? Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any discussion from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I was on holidays when the curling club came to council with a presentation about their taxes, and I was extremely disappointed when council gave them some information and went back to the city staff to come up with another recommendation. As you know, I was the chairman of the advisory committee, and our mandate at that time was to have a cap on the permissive taxes, and also with the advantage of having a cap, we would also have a revenue stream, which we were talking about at the time. And I think at the same time, the committee was asked also to come up with ideas on how to increase our revenue. So there was a policy that was put in place, and it was approved by council. And when these people came to council with their presentation, I would assume that we would have just thanked them, sent them on their way, and said we had a policy in place and there was nothing we could do about it. However, by putting it back on the table and going back to the city with more recommendations, of course, they've come up with different assessments, and now their taxes are much lower, which is great for them. But it also throws into some action the other people that were given a 50% reduction in permissive taxes. And it's like a house of cards now. It's starting to fall. And I think any time that we have a resolution and council passes it, I don't think we should then go back and try to help change that policy without maybe first changing the policy. So I'm very disappointed in council doing that, and therefore I know we're just receiving this information, which is fine, but we're going to have to now deal with the other organizations because of the situation with the curling club. I talked to the executive of the Lawn Bowling Association, one of the members, before the curling club came to council, and he said they didn't have a problem with the taxes they had to pay. So we had it going in the right direction until we changed things, and that's unfortunate. But I guess that's the way it is. But I would think in the future when we have a policy that we would just stick with it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Greer. Just a couple of points. Number one, council has not directed staff to alter the policy after we approved it, nor has council directed staff or made a decision ourselves with respect to any sort of additional granting of funds. So at the present time, the policy remains as it was implemented, and we'll see where we go from there. Go ahead, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think in a democracy, people are allowed to appeal decisions, and I think that's what the curling club did. As well, anybody in this room can appeal their tax assessment through BC Assessments, and that's what the curling club did. And I don't think that they were unreasonable when they did come to council, because when we had the discussion about the permissive tax, we did talk about people being able to come to council and appeal the decision. And so I'm not sure why you are so upset about them coming forward, because it's a democracy.
All right, thank you, Councillor Powell. Go ahead, Councillor Greer.
Well, it certainly is democracy, and it's also democracy, the fact that we had a motion passed and it was approved by council unanimously. And to change it, or we haven't changed it, I'll agree with that, we haven't changed it, but we did open the door for them when we went back to council, or we went back to staff to come up with other recommendations. And since now that this is a wide open situation, we're going to face the other organizations that come along. It's my feeling that when we make a resolution and we pass it, and if somebody comes to appeal it, we listen to them. We say, well, this is the resolution. I'm sorry, we can't do anything more about it at this time, and leave it at that. Otherwise, you're going to be changing every policy that you make.
Shall I, ladies and gentlemen? Go ahead, Councillor Powell.
Guess you should have been here.
All right, very good. So certainly, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, anyone can come as a delegation as long as they meet our policies on that and make any kind of requests. I believe a majority of the council at that time wanted to get absolute certainty around this issue and did ask staff for a report, which you have within your package. And at the present time, all we have at this moment is a motion to receive. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. One of the things that I did at the ABICC, which we hosted just last week, was speak with the Deputy Assessor of BC Assessment, Mr. Bill Dawson, whose office is in Nanaimo. And I spoke with him about the issues that the curling club is facing and other institutions such as the lawn bowling club. And if we so chose, maybe the thing to do would be to have all of the plants that we have actually reassessed, have a look at what the cost is going to be as far as taxes are concerned, and think about what the impact would be for all of the organizations that we deal with and that use our property or use similar property. And I think that this is something that we can consider. And I am still very much in favor of the policy that Stephanie and Mr. Greer, Councillor Greer, came up with. And I think it's appropriate that we hold to that. It may be the fact that the assessment is incorrect, and we should be looking at a correct assessment. And as Mr. Manson has suggested in the report, the appropriate amount of assessment would in fact fall drastically for virtually all of the locations that we have and that we sponsor as far as the community activities within the city. And it's just a comment that I would make. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. No further comments or questions. I'll call it on the motion to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Does any other member of council wish to bring any motions forward at this time on this subject? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Into new business, ladies and gentlemen. Does any member of council have any new business? Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sure that some of my colleagues will be speaking to the, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities conference that City of Parksville co-hosted with the town of Qualicum Beach last week. By all accounts, it was extremely well attended and very successful. I selected two areas or two lessons, if you will, that I came away with. One was some information I picked up at one of the presenters at the trade show in regards to the risk of major earthquake. As you know, I'm really pushing to get automatic notification to our emergency coordinators from the province in the event of an earthquake and tsunami. And I hope that you all had an opportunity to pick up some of that information from that booth, especially the effects of earthquakes on ferry terminals. I think it's essential that we become aware that when that big one comes, we're going to be left alone. The other thing I picked up was information about the spine trail. And there's a lot of discussion right now about the rail corridor and some people feeling that it should be left as a trail system. But I'm not sure how many people are actually aware of the spine trail, which is something I encourage, if you're not aware of, to Google this and learn about that. That's a trail that's running from one end of Vancouver Island to the other, and it's almost totally constructed already. So there was a group of people there talking about that trail, and I was very excited to hear about this. I'm just wanted to mention that so that hopefully council will have a look at it if you're not already aware of it, and get the word out about this exciting new trail. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Powell, you said you had an item.
It's just new old business. I just would like a report. I didn't ask when I put that resolution forward about the Orange Bridge merchants when the report was going to be back from staff. Do you know when?
Mr. Manson.
If I may, Your Worship, the Director of Operations, who would be the primary person to write the report, is away on holidays. He'll be back on Monday, so I would expect it would start after that.
Other members of council, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I have something in front of me, and as Councillor Lefebvre is not here, I'm going to address it because I was a member, at least the liaison for the MAC, the OCAC. In fact, I think all of us on council received a copy of the board achievements that have occurred since the interim board has now taken over, and some of the things it's really quite impressive. It's basically 2.5 pages of things that have been done to improve the installation of the organization and how it's going forward. I know that the board itself is generating a fair amount of revenue, and hopefully in the future they will not have to come to the council for further donations or further grants, as Council Greer has suggested he would like to cut out. So that's one thing. I think that they're doing a tremendous job, and I would like to have that entered in the record as to what the board is doing. A second thing is that, again, going back to the AVICC, both Councillor Powell and I attended the presentation by Mr. Machado and Mr. Newman from Gibson's as far as water is concerned. And they are actually bringing their water rates up. They're using an aquifer system, and they're pulling water, 3/4 of their water usage is coming from that, and a quarter from the RDN, at least not the RDN, but their regional district. And they're actually bringing their prices into line so that the multifamily residential, the single family detached, and the commercial retail will in fact be very close, and will in fact be in line with what they figure is a common rate. Maybe as high as $260 by the time they get to it in 3 years' time. And I have some data on that from the gentlemen that were making that presentation. I found that fascinating. In addition, third thing, we have a tremendous surplus. I shouldn't say surplus. We have a tremendous position as far as our the welfare of the city of Parksville, and I look at the benefit that we have. I look at the taxes that we derive, and I think that personally, the city can afford to in fact lower the taxes on our general tax rate. At this point, I'm not willing to make a recommendation with respect to the taxes are concerned, but I think that we should in fact look at lowering our taxes, and we could probably do that to the point of having a lesser increase. We have an increase that's going forward at 2% at this time, and I think there's justification to look at a lower increase than that. And I'm not saying down to zero, but I think that I would ask that we, as a council, move that the administration be directed to ascertain what the cost would be, in fact, if we lowered the tax rate from 2% down to 1.5 or 1%, and see what the implications be as far as our 5-year plan going forward. And that would be the motion that I would make.
Okay, so before I take your motion, and I certainly will do that, I'm going to look to Mr. Manson, because I think you can answer that very, very quickly. In regard to reduction of 0.5% to 1% at our current 2%, and I believe 2.5 going out in the 5-year financial plan, what would be the impact year 5?
If I may, Your Worship, right now the budget is projecting a 2% increase in 2014, 2.5% in the next 4 years, beyond that for the 5 years. 1% right now is a little better than $100,000. So if you, instead of having a 2% increase this year, you were to reduce it to 1.5%, $50,000 times 5 years would mean that the projected surplus, which I believe is somewhere in the 750,000 range for 20, or whatever the last year is, 2018 or 2019, would be 500,000. If it was reduced to 1%, it would be 250,000.
Right. So, as you know, we budget on our financial plan, and so we have, if I recall, without the documents in front of me here, a low spot in year 5 again, less than the $1 million that we seem to target to have as an accumulated surplus. So any reduction in tax rate at this stage, of course, is amplified out the full 5 years, and that's the end result. But if you want to bring your motion forward, you absolutely can. I'll seek a seconder for you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I would like to bring the motion forward, and the situation is such that as the financial report was presented by Mr. McGorman, we are in very good financial strait. We're not in any financial dire straits. We are, in fact, goodly positioned, and I think that given the fact that the consumer price index is 0 or virtually 0 as far as BC is concerned, we can afford to, in fact, back off on some of the increase that we're suggesting. So I would make the motion that we lower the rate by 1%.
All right, so you have that motion on the floor. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Greer. Discussion. You've already spoken to it, I presume, Councillor Neufeld. Anyone else wishing to discuss it? All right, I'll call it then. All in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated. All right, thank you, Councillor Neufeld. Carrying on. Any other members of council have any items of new business? If not, I'm going to relay a very quick story. Looks like I can relay that story. Before I do that, though, as was mentioned, I believe, briefly, we did just host, of course, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. We had a spectacular weekend to host that in, and it was a partnership between ourselves and the town of Qualicum Beach, of course. I was in attendance, and as I believe all members of council were, and I have to say we had a very good time. I got all kinds of accolades from colleagues clear across the island and the Sunshine Coast. So very impressed with this region. Some of them having not visited here for quite some time, others much more familiar. And I have to say, especially with the weather the way it was and the cherry blossoms and all of that, we just shone so brightly, both of our communities, so that was fantastic. However, here's the story. As you know, we have a coffee with council every Thursday, and we do have all sorts of folks showing up for those sessions. And generally speaking, not always certainly, but generally speaking, they bring concerns. It could be an exorbitantly high water bill, it could be a neighbor making too much noise, whatever. I had these 3 ladies show up last Thursday, and they were sitting very patiently. I was actually late. Nonetheless, they were sitting very patiently, and they came into the room where we hold it, which is right next door. And these are all, as you might expect, I won't dare say older, but they were mature ladies that were very serious looking, and one had a file about this thick, and so in my mind, of course, I'm thinking, okay, there's a concern here, and could be something to do with whatever, but come on in, ladies, and they did, and they sat down, and they said to me, we want to talk to you about industrial hemp production on Vancouver Island. And I was so very impressed after I spoke with these ladies. They have, some folks are not satisfied with knitting for their grandkids or doing anything like that. These ladies were very much interested in how we can bring more sustainable industrial development to Vancouver Island. And you could tell by the significant amount of work that they had done that they had been researching this quite extensively. And their names are Donna Millen, Gerda Christensen, and Delane Walsh. And they provided me with a ream full of all kinds of contacts and connections as far as understanding that industry and all sorts of things in terms of the research they had done. Apparently, we only have 20 acres of hemp growing in all of British Columbia, according to their stats. And they have noted that in other areas it's actually a very lucrative industry and growing quite rapidly. And as you might well know, there's tremendous properties associated with hemp that are being more and more regularly accepted all the time. So I promised them that I would put them in contact with folks that could help them, not least of which, of course, is our MLA, but others certainly in the agricultural industries, etc. And I just wanted to raise it here because it's not often you get sort of, you had to almost be there to see these folks out of their own just interest and determination to do something for the community and the benefit of everyone, to come forward and not only undertake all that work but try to get something started. So I'm very impressed with these three citizens, and I just wanted to share that with other members of council and anyone else who cares to listen. Very good. Let us move on. What we need now is a motion to move into special business, and I'm going to need a mover and a seconder that, pursuant to Section 91E of the Community Charter, council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item related to land. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Greer. And all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will be going in camera, and we will see you next time.